Okay, so today is July the 18th, and we're just about to close the major international conference, ICTM, International Council for Traditional Music World Gathering. And this happens to be in Ghana, on the University of Ghana, Legon campus. And tomorrow, the 19th July 2023, will be the final day. And today, we have a few minutes to have a special conversation with one of our key artists, performers, presenters, Kiku from Japan. And we don't have any strict format right now, so it'll be free-flowing to some extent. And number one, to feel at home, I want to briefly introduce myself, especially with my name. My middle name, Troko Nagbo, is one of those we call drinking names given to my grandfather. Literally means turn your neck around, come back home. There's no place like home. If you go too far away, you will still come back. So that's the name I was talking about at the session today. And talking about names, fully Daniel Kodzo Avorgbedor. So I am currently on employment with the University of Ghana in the Institute of African Studies and the Department of Music, School of Performing Arts. So I've been here since 2013 officially, and before then I have taught for at least 10 years at the University of the Ohio State University, Columbus, Ohio. And before then I was doing editorial work at Realm Abstracts of Music Literature. Yes, and also teaching part-time at City College, New York. And so that gives you just a brief window into my life. And I do many things, researching here actively, including in a ceremony, royal ceremonies. We get a research fund from the institute, and quickly our composer team will go and do recordings, and then come back and deposit the materials in the archives and use them for teaching purposes also. So briefly on names, can you now officially introduce yourself by name? We know you as Kiku. That's all we know. Is there anything else apart from Kiku?
Yes, I actually have a very long name.
We know we want it all.
Traditionally, I mean, if you are Japanese, you only have one first name, one last name. But that's not my case. I have a Japanese mother and an American father, and that's where they comes from. And Kiku is not the whole thing. Kiku means chrysanthemum, but my first name is actually Kikutsubo, which might have been a common name in year 800, maybe. It's certainly not very common today. And when I tell Japanese people my name is Kikutsubo, they all burst out laughing. They can't believe that can be true. My father read what is considered the oldest book or novel in the world, which is Japanese and maybe written by a woman. It's so long ago that it's hard to know precisely, but there are names like Kiritsubo, Fujitsubo, and he took inspiration from that. And I was born in October, and chrysanthemum was blooming, so he called me Kikutsubo, which I've had many troubles with. And then I have a Greek name, Karathea, and then I have a Russian, Ukrainian name, Mikhailovna, because I have ancestry from Ukraine, Russia. And then I have my mother's family name, Mizuno, and then Day, which comes from my English grandfather.
English grandfather. Great. Yes, and I was reading a little bit about your bio. You hold a PhD, right?
Yes.
From where?
From SOAS. Yeah, the University of London. In ethnomusicology and performance.
Performance, right. And during your times over there, teaching and performing, were you doing workshops there too?
Yes, I mean, I would say that England, when I moved to England first as a bachelor student, that was actually where my Shakuhachi teaching really started flourishing. I wasn't particularly planning to teach or anything. At the time, I had only played 10 years, and I thought that's way too little to begin teaching. So, but people came and wanted to learn, so I couldn't do anything else than start teaching. And then I found out I really love it, and it's one of my passions now, also to pass on what I love. So I do that a lot. But yeah.
I see. So is there a history of Shakuhachi playing in the family, or just your personal interest?
Not at all. As there's my family divides in two, like the scientific part and the artistic part. So there is music in the family, but not traditional Japanese music.
Okay. Now, being, let's say, female, right? Is there any restriction, perceptions about a woman playing the shakuhachi?
Yes, absolutely. So the shakuhachi was played by Zen Buddhist monks, or this saying monks is a little bit problematic already, because they formed a sect called the Fuke sect, but actually the sect was never officially recognized by the government, so it was never really a sect. But however, there was a sect, and it had something to do with Buddhism in some ways. And they were the one who played. So of course they will be male, because only men become monks, obviously. Yes. And they had to be male of samurai family, so it's a very strange sect. No lay members or anything. Yes. So you entered the sect if you wanted to make a living out of the shakuhachi during that time. That was in the Edo period, which is 1603 to 1868. So there's only already that. So it's a male-dominated instrument from history. Yes. And then when it became, the Fukuse got abolished by the new government, and it became liberated, because otherwise the Komuso monks had monopoly on playing. So it was liberated, and people could play. And there we have the first shakuhachi boom, as we call it. Many people started playing shakuhachi. And it was absolutely male-dominated, and especially older men, so maybe it didn't have a good reputation. It certainly hasn't had in like modern times. Because of that image of that's something that you do when you have retired. However, so if I should talk about when I started playing it, there were very, very few women. But I would say me being only half Japanese was maybe always problematized more than me being female. Today there are quite a few, let me say it that way, female shakuhachi players who come out of the conservatory in Japan, and I educated on shakuhachi. So right now it's really changed the past 10 years. That change started a little bit earlier, of course, but then suddenly come. However, if you look at who are the greatest players, kind of thing, there are no female among yet. Wow. So it's still male dominated.
Apart from you, then there's none.
I do my best.
Yes.
And of course, outside Japan, it doesn't have that male dominance connotation. So outside Japan, there are a lot of female players. Plus, the word shakuhachi has a sexual connotation. And I don't understand why it has a sexual connotation when women do it, when play the shakuhachi, and not when men play it. But so I think there's also a barrier in that.
Now, in regard to training, you mentioned conservatory.
Yes. I didn't go to the conservatory.
Is that a traditional institution or the Western type of conservatory where you have to
the
go
Western type.
Western type?
And the result is also thereafter.
I see. Amazing.
So, great technical skills, very, very well educated players come out of the conservatory, but in my personal opinion, also a bit far away from some of the traditions, let's say, in that sense.
Right.
And I studied intensively for 11 years with a teacher, so I had this quite intense teacher-pupil kind of relationship for 11 years. And when I go to Japan, I certainly go and see him, take lessons from him.
Yes. So I think that adds an important, cultural dimension to it. Like in India, they have this teacher-guru-shishya relationship.
Very much.
Yes. So although it is sort of canonized in a classroom, that teacher-student relationship is very important, right? I think that's part of tradition.
Yeah.
You have to keep up. And so the typical classroom, Shakuhachi, teaching situation, will they rely on notation, for example? And who designs who produces the notation? A classical textbook for them.
Ooh, yeah, that's a problematic one. First of all, let me just describe a traditional lesson. It really depends on the teacher, but one of the very, very traditional forms is that the teacher has, for example, 2 days or 3 days a week that he teaches, and I can say he here because I think the ones who taught this traditional way have basically been male. And there's a time, span where the teaching will happen, and you just go when you can.
Oh, okay.
And then most probably there will be somebody already having a lesson, and you line up, you sit in a queue waiting. So you will listen to all the people in front of you. And it's kind of regarded as part of your lesson already. Whether it's somebody that better than you or more junior than you, so that is described very often that it happened like that. Nowadays, of course, can be different. My teacher took time, and then you went there and had a lesson for an hour.
I see.
Yeah.
So what point does the notation comes in as a way of mediating the orality in the literary tradition?
The Shakuhachi is basically still an oral transmitted tradition. However, there is notation. And the notation, there are very old notation of the previous kind of Shakuhachi that existed before it became like this instrument. But so this notation that most are using today is just phonetic. It's Japanese alphabet, and it shows the fingering, not the pitch.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so it's not pitch focused. So if the notation 2, then I know that I have to hold like this. And whether I play on this size, one that's shorter or one that's much longer, when I see 2, I will do the same fingering. So pitch is not the most important. Yeah. But and talking about notation will take a long time because there's no uniformity. I mean, you've got different styles depending on the school, and each school has a little variation of their notation. Yes. So you really, to know how to read the notation, you need to be part of that style or school. The way the notation I have been trained in, there's no indication of like tempo or rhythm. and it is rubato music,
I see.
you could say. So my teacher would say that your own breath is the only pulse that there is for sure in his music, and not anybody else's breath.
Yes.
So, however, of course, today there are lots of methods now to indicate rhythm.
Nice.
So that is also under development, or
Uh-huh.
it certainly is already.
What about technique and control? For example, some wind instrument players talk about secular breathing. Is that such a thing?
Secular breathing? No.
You know, people hold their breath for a long time.
Oh,
you not realize the
circular,
actual...
circular, yeah. No, that is not a thing. You see, it's got a big hole. You don't have any resistance. You know, it's the circular breathing is easier if you can put pressure, and then you can keep air in your cheeks or somewhere, and then you can breathe past. So that we don't have. And of course, in modern times, some people have managed to do it. I've really tried to do it, but I never managed to. But the one breath is very important in the Shakuhachi music. So it would be very strange to apply it to the traditional music. Of course, contemporary music, you can apply it all. Yeah.
So in the teaching, in a typical lesson, right, class, how much time will the teacher pay to posture, proper way of holding the instrument, and breathing, breath control, for example?
That's something that's funny about Japan, and it's maybe the lack of pedagogical strategy. So I think in the traditional way of teaching, there's not much of that. So you just play pieces, and you're supposed to actually imitate your teacher. And a lot of the times, there's a concept in Japanese where it's you say you have to steal the art of your teacher. So that means, you know, when the teacher plays, that art is available to you, so take it. But the teacher might not tell you, you know, it doesn't explain maybe.
I see. Now, you can easily tell if this person is a bad player, right?
Very easily.
Yes, so, for example, today, where will you be hearing the shakuhachi being played? What occasions?
Today? Today, the shakuhachi has become a normal musical instrument. So it is very much played on stage, played in ensembles, played as soloists in classical orchestras. There are also now, and has been for a long time, created ensembles, bigger orchestras for Japanese instruments. That didn't happen in traditionally, where the shakuhachi is part of it. The shakuhachi has become a part of the classical music world of Japan, which it wasn't before, because it was these strange uncertified weird monks played. So it wasn't part of the classical music world, but it has certainly become now. But that also means that, of course, there are still people playing the rural traditions, and they become less and less.
Yes.
But they're still around. So those people may more consider it as spiritual training, as it was maybe before, maybe not. The shakuhachi is very tricky.
Yes.
So there will be that. So there will be also gatherings of these kind of players, and they will play in temples, and they will play facing the altar.
I see. And so right now, with Shakuhachi is still, or is it connected with Zen Buddhism, for example, and the role of meditation and prayer and all that? Does it have a place today?
Yes, I would say in any Shakuhachi player's consciousness, that part of the Shakuhachi history is present, that it has been like that. I would say in Japan, as a general rule, it's mostly played as a musical instrument. Apart from the other groups that are now the minority, outside of Japan, it's very much played for its meditation and things like that. Yeah, because that's where their focus went in some ways. But yeah, in Japan today, it's become a musical instrument. Also, I mean, for a very literate society like Japan, there's quite a few, only a few written documentation, and there's not much documentation about how it was used in the temple, and so we don't know very much. There's no transmission of the spiritual aspect. They kind of stopped with the abolition of the sect. But the music lives on.
It lives on, yes. What about the instrument itself manufactured, the material? For example, if you're living in Ghana, you want to make a shakuhachi right now in Ghana, will you find the material, the bamboo type?
Probably not the exact bamboo type, but if you find something with this length. Now, the tropical bamboo is quite different from the cold weather bamboo, because in Japan you can get very cold, and you actually look for bamboo that grown in cold areas, because they say that they become more dense and better instruments. Yeah, it's hard to know if I will have to cut the Ghanaian bamboo, but from what I've seen before, it's probably a little bit too thin inside the bore, and too thick walls. But that, of course, you can drill out, and you can do. The modern instruments are cut into two here, so if you cut into two, you can easily drill and great. I'm sure that will be bamboo that you can make shakuhachi from. Definitely.
Yeah. What about standardization? The material, the length, weight, and even the decoration, if you want to add extra.
There's no standardization about the looks. I mean, then you can have schools that really like one particular type of shakuhachi, one shakuhachi that bends, or you know. But the standardization of the shakuhachi has happened over from the latter part of the 18th and 19th century, especially when shakuhachi entered the Sankyoku ensemble, which is played with shamisen and koto.
Yes.
And for that ensemble, some of the tuning was standardized. So, for example, this hole is a little bit smaller than the others, in order to tune it so that it fitted with the other instruments. Before that, the shakuhachi was created out of a formula. You had a length, you divided the flute in 10, and then you put the hole. So, I think it would have sounded very chaotic if these flute played together.
Yes. In your own teaching and workshops, do you have a special approach, personal approach, something you've devised, ways of maybe even, let's say, the embouchure, the placement, how they hold the instrument, and
yes, I have little by little found a way to teach it that I think gets both the individual differences that people have because we're built differently.
Yes.
But still can help them place the flute right. That is number one. And start blowing.
I see.
Yeah. So I really do try to find the best way.
Is there any relationship at all between the Western orchestral flute, for example, and Shakuhachi?
Except for that they are both, overblown, kind of, end blown. Well, the flute is a traversal. It's not end blown, but it's got a hole here in the side,
Right.
So, of course, it's similar. And I will say the most traverse flute players, they find the sound very easily because they know how to use the breath, how to direct it, and things. So in that sense, that is, I came from traverse flute as well.
Oh, I see. That's amazing. Interesting to know.
Yeah, and but the shakuhachi is not built so that the notes are kind of egalitarian kind. So they don't have the same volume, they don't have the same timbre as you play, and you have to kind of move your head quite a lot in order to play the notes. Doesn't exist just by opening a closing hole. And that's where the flute players hit a wall, because they usually have to play all the notes egalitarian, same timbre, same kind of volume.
Now, do you have something like playing a scale? Like most instruments, when they start learning about scale, these are the notes and something like that.
No, I would say the whole idea of Shakuhachi is not very much scale based. But people do today, and if you're conservatory educated, I'm sure they have played as many scales as I did also on the traverse flute.
Yes.
But of course you can play but it's not something that is very encouraged. You're more encouraged to play long notes throughout, of course, the registers, and then basically you play pieces.
Now, in terms of construction and standardization, if we take two shakuhachis right now, the spacing, the same number of holes, same spaces between them, and the notes precisely the same pitch level.
Well, because it's now started to be tuned in Western, standard tuning, then the standard shakuhachi is tuned to D, D4, and then it's D, F, G, A, C, and then D again. So it's these 5 notes, and that is supposed to be the same. It's very hard to really get the same, even on a traverse flute, you will tune a little bit,
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and you can't do that here, then you have to tune here, But yes, so right now, today, most shakuhachi are tuned to Western pitch. Therefore, yes, they would have the same pitch. But the spacing might be a little bit different because that varies after how big the bore is, how fat or thin the flute is, and these kind of things. If you take a traditional tuned shakuhachi, it's just not very standardized, let's say that way.
That's amazing. What about now your professional life, just capping it with your experiences, doing workshops, being invited here and there? You have a website and recordings. Well, do you think these are essentially a part of your livelihood, professional life? transmitting, sharing experiences, skills across the and recordings. So can you summarize some of your experiences in different contexts of different countries?
Summarize? Ooh.
Yes, summarize. Summarize.
I mean, yes, I mean, it's some years ago that I went, so that I don't have like a position teaching at university, or so kind of gone completely on playing professionally. Teaching, of course, but yeah, it's tough. It's it's a minority instrument. So even though that there's a lot of activities around Shakuhachi, a lot of new compositions, and it's still quite tough. And yes, but I still go on because I love it so much, and I love to share, and I always find it fascinating to have had a role in a Shakuhachi community, happening in certain countries or areas. So, yeah.
Yes, and also coming back to workshops. I know you did a workshop with our students, and normally you bring some sample shakuhachi, even those which are made of plastic or fiberglass. These are examples, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So for the workshops, hands-on, right?
Yeah. So I bring PBC shakuhachi like this. The maker, Torsten Knab, was very taken by that. He had by chance made it in Ghanaian colors.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, you know, our ICTM, the bamboo fruit,
yeah.
You know, the hole at the back, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's a nice coincidence.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so yeah, I bring these because they are very practical. They're PBC. If it's kind of a public place, then I take also disinfection. So if people don't play anymore, but somebody else wants to play, I can wipe it off.
Well, I see.
Yeah, and so they're very practical in that sense. So
is there a hole at the back of the original one there? Wait a minute. So this. There we go.
Yes. Absolutely.
No, I didn't see it at all. Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so you said you'll be going to Ireland, right?
Yes.
Yes. When?
I fly tonight. I go to
it's actually tonight.
Yeah, I fly tonight. And then I arrive in Ireland tomorrow afternoon. And yeah, I have a 12-hour stopover in Paris. And then from Thursday, because it's Tuesday today, tomorrow, Wednesday, I'll arrive, and then Tuesday morning we have a 4-day workshop where we are quite a few teachers and quite a few students. Yeah. It's the European Shakuhachi Society's annual.
Wow, you have a society, European Society.
Yes.
Wow. But I think looking at your bio, you've been to Ireland before. You had a...
Yes, I've been to Ireland before.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been invited to play a couple of times in Ireland.
Yes.
So sometimes, I get I get an email. Can you play this and this piece, or do you want to be part of this project? And
yes.
Then I go over.
Yes, and also, do you have some recordings at the website people can buy or listen to?
Yeah.
Even if it's through commercial means.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I've actually not been that good at producing CDs, but my PhD was on the creative collaboration between performer and composer. So I collaborated with 5 different composers, and then I played the pieces. So the 5 pieces that came out of that collaboration is out. And
Wow.
can be bought, and it can also be downloaded on the usual suspect places, and even seen on YouTube.
Is Takemitsu a Japanese composer?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay.
He composed this piece, the first piece for orchestra and Shakuhachi and Bio.
Oh, really? So it's
Yeah.
mention his name. I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I've played his, performed his piece.
Oh, wow.
It's wonderful.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. And then, apart from the website, so you want to continue this professional life, traveling, right? Sharing your knowledge and skills. Yes. So I think, given the ICTM context in Ghana, the meeting, I think it's another great exposure for you.
Yeah.
And not only that, an opportunity for some of us who have not really met you before and actually participate in your great talent. And I'm so happy that you got a chance to play for the special memorial.
Yes.
Just yesterday,
absolutely.
right? Yeah, that's very meaningful, and we have a record of that, part of the history of ICTM.
Yes.
And you being in Ghana, it's another layer of that history.
That's
And
true.
we hope you come again.
I
And,
hope so too.
We'll come to this place again and then continue the conversation.
Yes.
So thank
absolutely.
you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
She play.
Yeah,
You want
so
me to play something?
yeah, in closing, I think we need to hear some sound, how it sounds like, and have a feel of your texture, timbre, just for.
I can play a short piece.
Sure, that'd be great.
Just tell me when.
idea here, double stop, something like 2 notes?
Sometimes, yeah, you can create double.
Yeah.
I mean, with notes like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what, yeah.
Double stop. That's
Yeah.
a funny one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's a great moment, and
Yeah.
I will share the copy with you.